Thanks for checking out another video from us. So today we're going to be looking at a piece of software. We use Partition Manager software quite a lot now. This software has been sent to us, so we are just going to run through the basic functions of partition management. That's all we're going to be doing today. We're going to have a brief look at what the options are, or what the additional functionality is compared to some of the other software that we use, and then we're going to have a quick wash up and leave it up to you whether you want to purchase it. So it's $50 for the Pro license, but it's a perpetual license. There is a free version of the software that you can do basic functions with it, but you can't do things like convert MBR to GPT and vice versa. So some of the functions are disabled in the free version, but we've gone for the Pro version to have a look at. In terms of what we're going to be doing today, there's no difference, so you should be able to do all the functionality that we're going to do. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to open the software. So it's called Aomei Partition Assistant. It's version 9.5. And you're presented with a nice clean interface. Looks really good. This does quite pleased with this interface. Very modern. Supports Windows 11 as well, and also gives you a link through to some free backup software that will allow you to back up your current system to local drives, or cloud storage, or to a NAS drive, and that is under this free backup up the top here. It's got some basic tutorials as well. This function here, convert MBR to GPT, that is obviously you're not going to be able to do that unless you go for the Pro version, but the basic functionality of creating partitions, moving partitions around, deleting partitions and recovering partitions are all available to you. Okay, so we're going to create a partition. So we've got a disk here, disk 7, that we're going to be using. So we've got two partitions on here, K and L. So K is the system partition, L is the data partition, which contains an operating system. And then we've got a partition here, or no partition. We've got some unallocated space here. So we're going to create a partition in this space. So we're going to select the partition, or we're going to select the unallocated space. We're going to do a right click and we're going to click on Create Partition. And this gives us the ability to tell the system how big we want that partition to be. Under the advanced section here, we're going to expand that because this is an SSD. We want it to be optimized for an SSD. So we're going to click on that. And you can see SSD partition alignment, and we want to set it to optimized. And we're going to give this a partition, or this partition, a label. So we're going to say, we're going to call this data. We want it to be NTFS so we can control the permissions on it. And we're going to select a drive letter. So I'm going to select drive letter M because it comes after L. That's the only reason for that. And then I'm going to say OK. And this is going to fill all of that unallocated space with this new partition. Once you've done that, you then want to click on Apply. You want to click on Proceed and then say Yes to start. And that's it completed. And there you can see we've got our partition. We've now got 3 partitions on the drive. We're going to say yes to this, though we're going to reload the properties actually because it's just found the new partition. We're going to open up File Explorer. And we're going to navigate to this PC, and we can see here that we've got our new partition empty, and we've got our existing partition which had the operating system, and we've got our data partition that we've created here. So we've got a drive here, disk 7. It's got 2 partitions on. We've got a system reserved partition here, and then we've got our I partition here. Now this is currently filling up the whole of the drive. And what we want to do is we actually want to create a new partition inside this. Now the easiest way to do this is to just select the partition, and as you can see here, all the options have changed here. And what we want to do is we actually are going not to use this. Well, we can use it. We can either click on split partition here, or we can do a right click on the actual partition and do it from here as well. So we are going to split the partition. We're going to create another partition. We're going to leave that one at about 365 gig, and we're going to create a partition that's 100 gig NTFS. So as you can see here, the original partition size 364 after we've changed it, after we split it, and then the new partition size of 100 gig here. What we're going to do is we select OK, and then as you can see up in the top left corner here, before it will do anything, we need to apply that change. So we can click on apply, and then that's going to make it permanent. And then we're going to proceed. I want to start. On a spinning disk it takes a little while, but it's done the partition, and then it completes all of its activities after that. Just to update the file system, we'll say no to that. And as you can see, once it's finished, congratulations, all operations have been completed successfully. That should say congratulations. All operations have completed successfully. So let me say OK to that, and that is now completed. As you can see here, we've got our G partition, our I partition, and then our new K partition. If we select it, we can see more details up here. Now if you open up Windows File Explorer, that should now have it all visible. So we'll say File Explorer, bring that in so we can show you. Okay, and we click on this PC, and we can see our G drive and our I drive. And where's our K drive? Here's our K drive. So this is the new 100 gig partition that we've selected here. We go into it, so you can see it's empty. We go into our I drive. This is just a Windows installation, and all of that is absolutely fine in there. So that's all there is to it. Okay, so now what we want to do is we actually want to increase the size of this partition to take up this unallocated volume here. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to use this option called Merge Partitions. You can grow the partition if you want, but for ease of use, we're going to actually merge our partitions. So we're going to say Merge Partition. We're going to select, make sure that our correct disk is selected, which it is, disk 7, and we want to merge partition I or drive I and the unallocated partition. So we're going to say merge the selected partitions above with the target partition I. We're going to say OK to that. And there we have it. That's merged the partitions. And again, top left corner, click on apply to complete that task. And there we go, all done. So now we're back to our two partitions. As you can see here, if I select the disk, we've got our system reserved partition, and then we've got our drive I. And if we go back to our File Explorer, we're going to scroll down to this PC, and we can see drive K has now disappeared, and we've got drive I and our system reserve drive G. These other drives are just USB drives, and there's all our program data from our Windows installation. Okay, so now we want to move a partition. So we've got our G, I and K drive, but we want to move our K drive to the beginning of this area here. So we want to move the unallocated space to the end of the drive. So to do that, we're going to do a right click on our partition, and we're going to say resize or move partition. And all we're going to do is to put it in front of the unallocated space. We're going to left click and hold, and we're just going to drag it to the beginning. And then we're going to say OK. And as you can see here, that has now moved that to the beginning of the unallocated space, but we've not finished there. So now what we want to do is we want to move, actually we want to merge this. We're going to merge this unallocated space. We're going to merge that with our K drive. So we're doing two actions here. We've moved our K drive to the beginning. And now what we want to do is we want to merge this space here so that actually our K drive takes up this whole block here. And we're going to select our tick boxes there. We're going to say OK. And then again, over the top here, we've now got three actions to complete. So we're going to resize the K drive, and then we're going to move the partition, and then we're going to resize the partition again. And we're going to say proceed. This will take a little while. Dropbox quite annoying. Okay, and that has now completed successfully. So now you can see here we've got our G, our I, and our K drive, and our K drive is now taking up the space of before the unallocated partition. Right, so we've got three partitions, and what we want to do is we actually want to delete this K partition and increase the I partition. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to click on that partition there, and we're going to say we want to delete that partition. So again, you can either choose delete partition from the left hand menu, or you can do a right click on it and say delete partition. And we're going to say delete partition quickly without wiping data, because there's no data in it. But if you did have data and you wanted to delete it, then you would select this option here, and then how you want to wipe that data. So if, for instance, it was going to the recycling centre, you probably want to do a Gutmann partition wipe, which would overwrite and write multiple times on each sector so that that data cannot be recovered. But we're going to be reusing the disk, so we're going to select the delete the partition quickly, and we're going to say OK. And then again, up in the top left corner here, we need to apply our change. So we're going to click on apply, and then we're going to say proceed, and we're going to say yes, we want to start. And that's it. So now we've got our deleted partition, and we've got our 364 gig live partition. Okay, so here we've got our drive, we've got our three partitions, we've got our unallocated space, and what we want to do is I want to actually wipe this partition here, completely wipe it, so remove all of the data on it. So I'm going to do a right click, I'm going to click on wipe partition, and so what I'm going to do is there's different options that you can choose. So we're going to choose the safest, or the quickest option in actual fact. We're going to fill this with zero data. So what that means is it's going to overwrite every single sector on that partition with null, basically. So it's going to write it with an empty or blank sector. These ones here, there are others. So this one here, it will overwrite it with random data. This one here will it will overwrite it with rubbish data multiple times, and the Gutmann, which is the highest and most secure data wipe, it takes a very long time though, because obviously it's going to do 35 passes over each sector. So in our instances, we're going to just select our fill sectors with zero data. I'm going to say OK to that. And it's done it. And what we're going to do now is, you can see here, it's going to wipe our data and then it's going to delete the partition. So we're going to say proceed with that. This is going to take a little while. And there we have it. So we've now got just our two partitions, G and I. We've deleted our K partition and wiped all of the data on there. So if we now go in and have a look at our drive, you can see here we've only got G and I that are showing. Right, so now let's have a look at our disk health and how you can check the status of your drive. So to do that, we're going to be using this drive here. We're going to select the drive, and we're going to you can either do a right click on the drive and select properties, or you can left click on the drive here and select properties from the left menu. So we're going to do a right click and select properties, and this gives us all the information that we need, the model of the drive, how it's connected. As you can see here, we're using a USB to SATA adapter, and it tells us the number of cylinders, heads and sectors per track. Now the important one that we're interested in is the health of the drive. So if you click on Health Smart, this gives us the status here, and we can see that our drive is good. All attributes on the disk is normal and the disk status is stable. And if you click on the details, it'll show you what the threshold is in terms of rereads and things like that. The most important one down the side here is they should all say good. If they do, then you've got a good healthy disk. So we're going to close that one down on that drive, and we're going to select our disk 0 that I've had in use for about 7 years now. 7 years, yeah, about 7 years. It's a 4 terabyte drive, and I know that this one is going to need replacing fairly soon. So we're going to select our drive, we're going to right click and go to properties, and again it tells us all the information that we need. If we go to smart options, as you can see here, the Aomei Partition Assistant has picked up the fact that it probably needs backing up to make sure that all the data is protected. But if we go in here where it says view details, so this is our smart status, you can see here we've got some cautions. So the spin retry count, so the threshold is 97 and currently it's at 100, so that is why that's showing caution. And again here, our end-to-end error check or error read rates, 99 is the threshold and it's sitting at 100. And again, our airflow temperature, actually our temperatures are not too bad, but as you can see here, it's telling us to be cautious. So we've got three items in here that we need to bear in mind, and we do a full backup anyway, so that's not too much of a problem. I don't have another 4 terabyte disk, but I will get myself one and I will migrate all of the data to that drive. So that's how you can check your status of your disks, and it's worth doing. And again here, Aomei is saying use the Aomei backup to back up your data regularly. So the first thing that we've got here is we've got our 250 gig M.2 SSD drive. Now this is mounted into a board, so this is a USB 3 to M.2 drive converter, and that's going to be slid. We're going to pop this into the case here, and then we're going to attach it to the PC using USB 3, and then that's going to give us the ability to clone any drive we want to this, and we can then take this out of here and insert it into a laptop or a desktop PC that's got an M.2 drive. Okay, and there we go. So we've got our drive installed into this M.2 to USB 3 enclosure. We're going to attach that to there, and then we're going to connect this to the PC. So the next thing that we're going to look at is how to clone your drive to an SSD, for instance. So we've got the ability to clone any drive that's installed to the SSD drive that we've just connected into our enclosure. So let's have a look at cloning. I don't know, let's go for this drive here. So this is a 500 gig drive. It's got a Windows installation on drive letter I, and we've got some unallocated space here. So what we're going to do is we want to clone all of this drive, which contains the Windows operating system, to this SSD drive, and then this can be installed in a laptop, for instance, or into another PC. We also have got the ability to clone our actual operating system. So this is the one that Windows is actually running on. There is no difference between cloning your running operating system onto an SSD or a non-running operating system onto an SSD. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to pick the non-running operating system and we're going to clone that onto the SSD drive. So you want to select the drive that you've got that you want to clone, and actually what we're going to do is we're going to say we're going to clone the whole disk. So we're going to click on the drive that we want to clone from, and we're going to say on the left hand menu here, disk clone, or you can right click on it and say clone disk. So we're going to select the right click and say clone disk, and what this option gives you here is going to copy only the data and leave you with some space so you can mess around with that if you want to at the end of it. It's going to resize the partitions for us, or we're going to do a sector by sector copy, which is a lot slower because it's going to actually copy every single sector on the drive, whether it's in use or not. So we're going to select clone disk quickly, and we're going to select next. And it's asking us the drive that we want to clone to, and in our instance we want to use disk 8, which is our M.2 drive that we've just connected. So we're going to select disk 8, and we're going to select optimize the performance of SSD if the selected destination disk is an SSD storage. So we're going to tick that box, and then we're going to select next, and then we're going to say fit the partitions to the entire disk, or you can edit them manually, but we're going to say fit the partitions to the entire disk because that will adjust them for you. You don't have to mess around with this afterwards. And then we're going to select next, and then we're going to select finish. So that is it all laid out. As you can see here, it's filled up the space, and we don't need to say make it a bootable drive or anything like that because we're actually doing a drive clone. So the G drive, which has the boot partition manager in there, so the master boot record is contained in the G drive. We're actually going to be selecting that here to make sure that it's all okay, and then we're going to click on a top left corner, we're going to click on apply, and then we're going to click on proceed, and then we're going to say yes, we want to start. And then we have it. That's all there is to it. So now what we've done is we've cloned this drive onto this drive here. So let's have a look at the File Explorer. And we go to this PC. We can see drive I, which is our operating system. And we go to drive L, that's our operating system. So that was a successful drive clone. Now what you can do is to take out the SSD drive from the enclosure. That can then be added to a laptop or a desktop PC, and you'll be up and running. There are no additional changes required. All you do is clone the whole drive. That's it. Okay, so we've walked through all of the basics, and let's now have a look at the difference between the free version, as you can see here, and the professional version that we're using. Let's scroll down. This bit's unimportant. We want to go down to the hard disk partition management, and as you can see here, you can do pretty much everything apart from you cannot split the partition, you can't allocate free space, you can't align the partitions, that means butt them up next to each other, and so on and so forth. This is quite a useful one, changing the serial number on your drive, and there's no command line. So let's continue to scroll down and have a look. Okay, so you can migrate the OS from MBR to an MBR disk, but as I mentioned, you cannot convert it from GPT to MBR and vice versa. That's one thing you can't do. Let's have a look on the hard disk converter. So you can convert between FAT32 and NTFS. You can convert the data disk between MBR and GPT. However, you cannot migrate the OS. So you can only migrate an OS from MBR to MBR. And as you can see here, there are quite a few differences. Let's look at the disk cleaner. Okay, so wiping a system disk, partially you can do it. I'm not sure what that means, but you'll have to find that out for yourselves. And obviously you can do the basics on a disk clone, but it's fully supported in the Pro version. Okay, yeah, so actually it is really beneficial to go for the professional version. It gives you the full functionality that we've been through there. The basics are obviously supported, as you can see here, from resizing, creating, deleting, merging, that kind of thing. But the really useful functionality is the paid for software. So let's have a look at the difference between costs on platforms. So we also use Easeus Partition Manager, Partition Master Professional. Okay, so monthly subscription $20, yearly subscription $49, and a lifetime subscription $70. So in theory, you know, you're paying for $49.95 versus $69.95. You get lifetime free upgrades on this one, so for $69.95. So let's select that from this one. Okay, so $53.96. So it's a little bit cheaper than the other software that we use, and it's got just as much functionality. Looks great, works well, fairly fast. Yeah, thumbs up.